Welcome everyone who are joining us from Soul TV, and welcome everyone live. My name is Trisha Kelly. This is Tom Kelly, and we're your hosts for tonight's show. And we're really excited. This is going to be not only fun, but enlightening. We have with us Barb Roberts, our dear friend and renowned face reader. Yes, that's right, face reader. You knew that you could read a book, you can read a newspaper, but this woman reads faces, and the information she gets from your face is sometimes much more impactful than even a newspaper or book. So, welcome, Barb.
Thanks, Trish.
We are just so happy to have you.
Thank you.
It is, because this is an interesting plane. We're in a 3D dimension here, right? And so
Definitely.
a lot can be disguised. Our thoughts we can hide from others, and our intentions we can hide from others. But on the higher dimensions, you know, I think it's like a clear read, right?
It's a clear read.
So to have someone like you in a dimension like this that can really just get a read on someone, I think it's pretty special. We'd love to hear about that.
I always think of myself like a tracker in the Old West, where, you know, if you read like Louis L'Amour books or some of the old books, I know everyone groans, but anyway, you'll see the hoof print in the ground, you know, for the horse, and which way is the rider going, where are they going. So face reading is like that. Everything's on the face. Your mental life, your spiritual life, your financial life, your emotional life, everything is downloaded from the soul and recorded in the body. And so I just track it. I just read it. It's like a printout to me.
So that means we create our features.
Yes, definitely. We create them. And I'll just go a little bit into my background to start with, if I could, Trish, and that way people get an idea of how this works.
Yeah.
This is my book, Face Reading, which is also on Amazon. And I'm the only author in this topic that is trained in Western medicine. I have 30 years in medicine. And at UCSD, I was co-winner of the Ewing-Malek Award for Research. And then I spent a lot of time in public health and hospice. So with that background, then I went on doing face reading to be on 50 TV shows, was on Tyra Banks and NBC Nightly News and The Young and the Restless and all this. And from that, because my background is clinical medicine, I looked at 6,000 people. So of all the authors on face reading, mine's the only book that has right now about 200 5-point ratings on it, because it's accurate, repeatable for people of all different ethnic backgrounds. And when I was on Tyra Banks last year, she was very kind and acknowledged this, and she said, I want to honor you because you're one of the few people who does something like your work, who looks at people of all different ethnic backgrounds, genders, and ages, which is very unusual. So it makes my work unusual, plus because, as you know, we've been meditating for 40 years. That makes it even more unusual for the Soul of Yoga, because we do the same path.
Well, I was just going to say,
the meditation path, and gives you a whole lot more insight when you do meditation.
Well, I was going to say, this is why you can look out and just see the whole spectrum, and not, you know, just focus on certain types of people.
Exactly.
Because of all that meditation you've done.
That's the hope.
Because I think you're reading souls as well.
There's I always, Tom, what you're mentioning that I love is I call it the science of face reading, which every facial feature has 3 psychological meanings to it. And that will get you 80 to 85% accurate, sometimes 95% accurate. But then you add in the intuition, which comes from inner sight. And that puts you at 100%. Because you look at the science, you add your soul intuition. When you look at someone, you add your compassion, your warmth, and the sense of, you know, we're all seeking, and you add that to it. So it really makes it special.
And that's perfect yoga. Science plus intuition.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
And I've worked with Barbara, and many of my friends and family have had their face read by Barbara. And it is that intuitional piece that sets you apart. Developing through meditation. Yeah.
Thank you, God.
And your work. Yeah. So where does spiritual development then, after all your meditation gives you intuition, how does that show up on the face?
How does that show on the face? Well, let me just go through the face and where things are so people get an idea of how this works. There are all these different facial features, and there are thousands of these. So probably by now I know about 400 where I know exactly what it means for people. So in the face, as an example, the forehead is your thinking style. You both have very high, wide forehead, which is humanitarian, thinking, the lines across for Trish are logical thinker with the heart center with the cheek area. So this is facial features that indicate learning, humanitarian work. This is the emotional area, and this is the will center. So those are some ideas. And then in the face, what gives you the strongest indicator for soul development are the eyes, because the eyes will show you, they reflect the light of God, basically. And when we look at people, and I brought some photos of the saints, because that's my fun, is studying the life of all the mystics throughout the world.
Wonderful.
And how to determine if someone is radiant in their eye structure. So that means it's not the eye color, it has nothing to do with age, nothing to do with ethnic background, but it's the warmth coming out of the eyes. And you, of course, both have that, which is older intuition, older soul. And then these older souls are drawn to wanting to perfect themselves, wanting to develop themselves. That's part of what they're interested in. Whereas very young souls are interested in more rules and regulations. They're more comfortable with that.
What the soul age?
Soul age, it's a casual term, and I know in metaphysics it's like this, bantered around all the time. I'm going to describe what that's like for face reading and soul age. These are all arbitrary terms. So we're looking at a young soul into an old soul. So soul age, and I brought the photos here that I'll show in a second. Soul age has to do with your degree of inner development. So it's not maturity, it's more your longing for God, it's more your interiorization, your ability to look at yourself, do introspection, and develop your intuition. So that's an older soul. So when we look at a young soul, and these terms, of course, are arbitrary, a young soul, and I have some photos, the eyes for them, when you're looking at their face, the eyes are very flat. They're cold and they're flat. And when you're looking at someone who's a young soul, and sometimes when we look at models in magazines, even though they're just photos, your eyes will bounce right back. You know, you're looking at someone and the eyes look flat or cold. So that's a young soul. And what the young soul is to learn, they're here for, I call it rules and regulations. They love that. You know, they love being confined, being told what to do. They, you know, that's comfortable to them. Then we move into what I call mature souls, which is sort of in the middle. And a mature soul is someone who's here to change the world. And oftentimes people work in medicine or they work in politics, and they're what I call mature souls. So their eye depth is stronger, but the old souls, and I often think of saints as the old souls, are the ones who really come to change themselves, like Gandhi, Martin Luther King. I have photos, for example, of the the portrait or painting of Christ, the Hoffman painting that is used the most of Christ, where we can see the compassion through their eyes, the warmth, the understanding. And when you look at an old soul, they're looking back at you. You know, from inside, they're radiating back their warmth. And we see this, for example, in Yogananda's eyes, that when you see an older soul, you feel like crawling up and just putting your head in their lap. And this, they all want different things. The young soul loves, you know, like I said, rules and regulations. The mature soul, if they have a problem with you, they will project it and it's your problem. You know, there's an interaction, it's your problem. Whereas an old soul, if there's a difficulty, what they want is they go inside and say, what part do I have to play in this? How can I change? How can I, what am I learning here? So those are what the different soul ages look like. So I want to show you in faces.
Yes, show us.
Okay.
Yeah, show us.
That makes it a little more alive. So this is the Hoffman photo, or excuse me, painting of Christ, and the most famous. And we can see, even though he's looking to the side, the tremendous compassion in his eyes, the warmth, and the radiance. So this is one example.
And actually, Hoffman, it is said that he had a vision of Christ before he painted this.
Exactly.
And that's why actually Yogananda chose this for his altarpiece, because he was the closest one to what how Yogananda saw Christ.
Exactly. And another example that Trish was just talking about is Paramahansa Yogananda. This is his photo of the last smile. And what makes him special of all the incorruptibles is that when he died, his body never decayed. And when we look at the mystics and the Catholic saints, this is a quality many of them have, is their bodies were so full of light that they never decayed.
Look at those eyes.
And so this is beaming love and joy, you know, an hour before he passed. And he also passed consciously. So this is a very old soul, an avatar. And so the eyes are very joyful, very sweet. And as we know, it's a black and white photo, so it's not even color. But you can see the radiance coming through the eyes. And so this is an example of an old soul.
Barb, may I just for a moment throw in a little personal? Because whenever you talk about his passing at the Biltmore Hotel in 1952, and this was an hour before that, there was Diamond who ran up to him, whispered Om into his ears. That's what she usually did when he went into a high state of consciousness. He didn't respond, and so she asked if there was a doctor in the house, and there was just one person that came up. There was one doctor, and he pronounced Yogananda dead. Well, years later, my mother called me, and she was just like all excited and everything because she was talking to our family doctor, the one who delivered me. And that's when she learned, and he said, your son he's in the SRF order, is he? He's a monk. And he said, I was there at the Biltmore Hotel. I was the one who ran up and declared Paramahansa Yogananda dead.
Oh my gosh.
I went, oh, small world.
Whoa.
He delivered me into the world in 1950.
Wow.
So I was very fortunate to be 2 years in a body, a little body, when Yogananda was still in his body for a couple of years.
That's great. Thank you. That's wonderful. It's wonderful. So, and the other part, as Tom knows and Trish, that many times there are avatars and great saints that aren't world figures, like Sri Yukteswar, who was the teacher for Yogananda, lived somewhat of a secluded life, but very great soul. You know, so it doesn't mean they're public figures, but it's more the inside that we're looking at, not the, you know, what they do on the outside. Another example, this is Saint Therese of Lisieux, one of my favorite saints, who's French, and this is when she met the Pope. I think she was like 15 and she put her hair up so she would look older. So this is, you can see the love and the radiance coming through her eyes. Very sweet picture.
What else do you see in her face that would denote, now she's known for her love. So what do you see in her face that would show that?
Love really shows in the depth of the eye tone, but you have a very similar face structure to Saint Therese of Lisieux, since you're asking, and the heart quality is in the cheek area. So the fullness of the cheeks is very sweet. Even when you're not smiling, you have the full cheeks, whereas Tom and I have the narrower analytical face structure. But yours is Divine Mother face structure.
This is why I married a saint. I knew that. I wouldn't be so analytical.
Is that true, Tom?
What?
That you could be analytical and straight shooter?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, you know, analytical from the heart, but
yeah, analytical from the heart.
Yeah, not.
But he can be mentally oriented. If that's
mentally oriented. There's also, if you look, you know, in face reading, you have the feature that is here in the front of the forehead is the line of intuition. Edgar Cayce talks about this. This comes forward with the deep set eyes, so this is deep thinker. And your lines go straight across the forehead, which is logic. So it's logical thinker. And then, of course, we talked earlier, you have what's called the fire face, which is the one President Obama has. So the fire face is the forehead is out, and then it comes to the apex of the chin, which is you think fast, you move fast, and you're multitasking at all times. True?
Close.
Okay.
Very good.
Very close.
I usually ask the spouse.
Score.
The person who's talking is like, well, I don't know. And then we ask the other person, like, oh, yeah. So those are some of the qualities for the heart. Also,
sweet.
The sweet part that St. Therese of Lisieux has is in the mouth structure. We're looking at a full wide mouth, the one that President Obama has also. And this is affectionate and generous. And sometimes these great souls are not necessarily channeling that into family life, but they're channeling it, the devotion this way, and the sweetness this way. So it's very, very lovely feature. This is another saint who has that same radiance, Anandamoyi Ma, who's mentioned in Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography, an Indian saint. And even though this is black and white, you can see the joy coming through her eyes. Very, very positive.
What did he call her? The joy-permeated mother?
Joy-permeated, I forgot that. Yeah, joy-permeated mother, exactly. Yeah. And there are two saints on this photo. The one in the bottom, I believe, is Saint Bernadette, who's a Catholic saint. And we're looking at the clarity of the eyes and the purity of the eyes. And I had the opportunity years ago to have a private meeting with Dayamata, where I was sitting this close to Dayamata for about an hour and a half. Talk about clear eyes. I mean, you looked at her eyes and you felt like you were going all the way through her eyes.
Dayamata, for those of you who don't know, she was the president of Self-Realization for over 60 years, I believe. So she carried Yogananda's work on for him.
Exactly. And here's another example, because the face reading is universal for all ethnic backgrounds, ages, and genders. And so here's somebody really sweet who has beautiful eyes. So even little babies, as we know now, come in as old souls. And they have a lot of joy and fun in their eyes. So,
and you were saying, Barbara has told us
Dimples.
that dimples.
Ron, dimples.
Fun.
So
right?
fun-loving dimples, very nice feature. And so back to the topic of soul age. So these are older souls, and now we're looking at a young soul. So I want to show you the difference in the eye texture. In the young soul, I'm going to move it over. You can see the flat eye tone. The eyes, your eyes just bounce right back. They look at someone and there's nowhere to go in depth. So the young soul, and not all models are young souls, just this particular photo shows this. The young soul, again, is someone often who is learning to set goals, to work things out, but might not have as deep of an interest in introspection or soul development. They're not really as interested. So this is the flat eye, the cold eye.
That's very perceptive of you, because we look at her and say, wow, what beautiful eyes. You look at her and say, young soul.
Yes. Now the eyes, beautiful, you know, could be, she's a model, could be the color of the eyes we think of as beautiful, but young soul.
Yeah.
Now another example of a young soul, and these are from the work I did for the FAA after September 11th. They had me look at criminals, basically. So that became my specialty. We call that the dark side. So we're here, the light side, that's the dark side. Okay, so here are some examples of young souls who have tremendous rage in their face, and you can see this projected in their face from the eyes. Is this Khomeini? I forgot who this is.
Ayatollah Khomeini, is that? Yeah, I thought so.
And terrorist. And then this is McCarthy. And in the eye tone, you can see the rage. You know, the eyes are flat, but there's tremendous feeling that's not positive. In, I think, 1950, who was the communist hunter?
Yeah, he was the one who,
who really put people in prison, very dark.
Blacklisted them, yeah.
And then this is another example, one of Hitler's Third Reich. This is Goebel. Eyes are very, very flat, vacant looking. And so these are very young souls, but just because you're a young soul doesn't mean you're a criminal. So the difference, thank heavens, the differentiation here is that in a young soul who has good facial features, it just means that they're developing. In a young soul, all of whose facial features are dangerous, it means they don't have introspection. They just live out, they just behave. You know, they just bounce off and they live whatever is dark inside them. So they don't have a conscience to filter that out. And so that's the difference between the young soul who is dangerous and the young soul who is learning.
Wow. Talk to us a little bit then. You touched on it a little bit with our foreheads and our cheeks and such. Talk about facial features and what they tell you.
I brought some. So in my book, I go into a few hundred of the facial features. So each of them has at least 3 meanings for it. So I brought a few that are universal. And these are examples of foreheads, which have to do with thinking style. So this is an example, if you want to hold it for a second. This is the forehead actually I have. So it's a square forehead, and then I have a widow's peak with it. But this particular forehead shape is the one for people who work long hours. We love working. We just, you know, we love serving. We're always doing volunteer work. So this is a square forehead line. Then the widow's peak, and you might know of people who have these. So the widow's
got
peak,
a widow's peak here?
Anybody in here? We'll look at some of you in a little bit. So the widow's peak has to do with these qualities. Usually the person is spiritually oriented and creative, and they like to be given information instead of micromanaged. So we, you know, every range has a positive feature and kind of, you know, a little more rigid. This one, we hate to be told what to do. So we're the wrong people to work for IBM. are going to the Army. We just don't do very well. Waking up at 6, brushing our teeth at 6:01. We just don't go. So when I do career counseling, which I do a lot, and I do sessions over the phone for people from all over the United States, and they ask me, well, what's my life career? When I see this feature and they tell me they want to go into the Army, the convent, or the military of some, I'm like, you want to think that through? You're not going to be happy doing that, because the face always is showing the inner character. Another example is very high white forehead, which is what you both have. So this is humanitarian by nature, thinks in big terms, wants a win-win for people. And then the shorter forehead, like if the forehead hairline were up here, the only person I could think of is Prince Harry. And this is a very short forehead, is somebody who's very impulsive and they don't always think through what they're doing. So they tend to just respond or act. So as an example, if you're a parent, which is, I recommend my book for parents especially, if you have a child who has a very short forehead or has something that they want to grow and change, the hope is that you move them in a direction that's more healing for them. If you see that you have a short forehead, yes, the person can be impulsive, but they also can be reckless. So you want to help that child to be aware of consequences for what they're doing. So they're aware of what's going to happen.
We have a story about that because Barb's a friend, and we were having, I think, lunch one day. We were together, and I showed her a picture of my granddaughter, who at that time was about 2 years old and would eat anything that her mother and father put in front of her. Wonderful eater. And then, but Barb said, she's going to become a picky eater. She's going to love orange juice and pizza, and I heard that and went, well, I'm hoping she's wrong. I've never known her to be wrong, but I was hoping. About 6 months later, she'll eat pasta, pizza, apple juice, bread, and I went, oh, Barb. So what did you see? I don't recall. I think it was something to do with the jaw.
So what I was talking about with that, Trish, is the 3 parts of the face. The forehead is the thinking style, the emotions, and the will center. So in her photo, she has a very, and I don't remember details, but I think very short will center. And so I did, if people are interested, on YouTube I have 20 TV shows where one of them's on children and how to look at your child and decide what they're needing in terms of their gifts and their life lessons. Well, the very short chin usually indicates that the child becomes a picky eater and or hates to brush their teeth. So I tell parents, if you see that, that to spend more time at the table at dinner, and make it more fun and make brushing your teeth a whole, fun thing, so the child develops those habits instead of like pushing those aside and just glossing over them, because that child came in to learn those things. So if you pay more attention with love, then the child can grow and manifest something different.
Isn't that interesting, dude? It would be so great to clone you and put you in schools. And
actually, I teach at schools. I've taught many times for the different school districts, because I look at dyslexia in the upper ear rim, and I look at little kids actually I do this all day on the internet. All over the United States, people call me and have me do face readings, because I do this all day long. And I look at children, and I'll look at the parent's face and then the child's face and say, here are your gifts, here's what they're receptive to, here's not what they're receptive to, here's how you work that out for this child. And it's really helped parents. One story that I'll never forget, in one of my classes, a mother came and said her son, who's I think 14 at the time, he's locked in his room, he goes to school, but his grades are starting to go like this. He's starting to get really depressed and just really unhappy. And I said, well, bring me his photo. So she brought the photo, and I took time and I did this like 15-minute little reading for him at age 14, that he would relate to. Whatever I said, which I have no clue of, the mother came back and she said, I think his name was Daniel. Daniel, listen to your tape. He said, okay, I'm ready to get my hair cut. Walked out of the room, cleaned his room, and she said, he completely changed after your tape, because she said, what he told us is your tape gave him hope. And it was so accurate. And his phrase, he said, Barbara really understands me. I've never even met her son. But because the face reading was so accurate for the present, it gave him hope for the the future in things I said. So that's the goal of face reading, is always healing and insight.
So, and if people want to get in touch with you, will we have the information up for? Okay.
And they can just call me. My
Google
book's
Barbara
online.
Roberts, yeah.
Yeah,
Or Face Reading.
facereading1.com is my site. They can you can email me, you know, and I respond to every email I get in person. And I'm on Facebook everywhere, on Face Reading Barbara Roberts. So you can contact me. And I like to especially read people who are military families. When there's a person who's deployed, I read the faces of the people who are left, who are seeking career guidance. I particularly like doing that for military families.
All right. So we're going to do something very spontaneous. We have 2 military wives.
Oh.
One husband just got deployed a week
Okay.
ago today. Come on up here, Kara.
Okay, great.
Barbara, this is Kara.
Okay, thanks for coming, Kara. Have a seat. So, so what I'm going to do is look at your face and read your character. As I say things, every facial feature has 3 meanings to it. So if I say something that's accurate for you, tell me.
Okay.
And if it's not accurate, just say no, and then I'll go to, I call it door number 2.
Okay.
So occasionally I have to go to door number 2. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to have you pull your hair back so I can see your forehead line. Wasn't that pretty? Okay, and then, okay, turn to the side. Now go ahead and smile so I can see your teeth structure. And you need to kind of face me so I can look at you better.
Okay.
And as I say things, I'm just going to go through your whole face.
Okay.
Okay, so pull your hair back one more time. Okay. So to start with, you have very fine eyebrows, and this is sensitive nervous system. So it's really important when we have fine eyebrows to do yoga, to do meditation, because that connects us to the inner energy that we have inside. You know, when our physical energy is spent, you need to go inside. So you do yoga. Hope you come here. There you go. So
Our
really
yoga training
important.
too.
What'd you say?
She's
Our
doing
teacher
our yoga
training.
teacher
Oh,
training.
perfect, even better. Okay, and you also have the interesting thing, if you look closely at your ears, and this is in my book, your ear right in here turns back on itself. So let me look again. On a 1 to 10, mine's a 12. Like you both have the ears that turn back right in here. Trisha's a 12. Yours is a 10 to 11. And what that means when it turns back in here, and this is something you were born with, so it means your body responds to alternative medicine, which is chiropractic, osteopathy, chiropractic, Bach flower remedies, reflexology, massage. True?
Yeah.
And or yoga, meditation, Pilates. So very important that we get into that. And most people at the Soul of Yoga have our ear. So very important that you become interested in that, because your body says, I like this. You know, this is good for me. And of course, I'm trained for 30 years in clinical medicine, but I'm also a holistic health practitioner. So it merges the two. So, okay, now you also have the very fine eyebrows, which is sensitive nervous system. So very, very kind, very sensitive by nature. And is your hair fine or thick?
It's thick.
Do you mind if I touch it?
Yeah.
Okay, very thick. So, and your eye color, I can't see at night.
Hazel.
Oh, hazel.
Yeah.
Okay. So hazel eyes usually indicates any of the following. So you tell me which is accurate for you. Doing 20 projects at the same time, easily bored, needs a lot of variety, and interested in healing and insight.
Yes.
Okay, accurate so far?
Yes.
Okay, so then we've got, so we're honing into your occupation, which is teacher training yoga, plus anything in alternative medicine is a match for you. And also, I have to look closely, I'm like staring. You also have, turn to the side, let me look at your nose. Okay, you also have a beautiful nose, and this is the one for value. So it's seeking value and understanding people. And the lip structures, the class that I'm doing on February 5th is romance. It's from 1 to 3 here, the Soul of Yoga. We're going to talk about romance and how to choose your soul person and how to look at people. So basically the upper lip you have, which is like mine, the upper lip is narrow and the lower lip is full. So what this means in face reading is that you take in information and you don't gossip. So it means people tell you things, but it means you keep confidentiality very well. So the overview for your face, you also in the face shape. Mine's what's called a triangle, which is college teacher, teach this on a college level. Tom's is the one President Obama has, which is the triangle. This is the fire face. And Trisha's is a combination. She's got this one with an overlay of this, which is your face. Yours is the diamond. So the diamond face is a survivor, meaning whatever happens, you change that from lemons into lemonade. You just keep moving it. True?
Yeah.
So, do you have any questions? Accurate so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then the last part you have, which is lovely, is your T structure is even, and this is quick learner. So you learn mainly by seeing it and hearing it. Where you're not the person we send into the back with a manual.
Right.
Okay. So accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
There we go.
right. Well,
Thank you.
Kara.
Thank you. So should I look at somebody else? Or what would you like?
Yes. Here, you touched on something that's very interesting, though. Romance.
Oh,
How
yes.
can face reading show you your partner? You're going to do a whole
Whole class
session
on this.
here.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it.
What we look for when two people come together is what I call a 70-30 match. And I go into detail of all the facial features in my book. So you want 70 to be similar, which means your natural temperament, your natural way of responding to things is close. You know, your nervous system similar, which makes it easier to get along with someone. And then the 30% is different, and that's chemistry. You want chemistry. You don't want to look exactly like someone. But we do know when couples look alike, they're usually happier. And this is true for all different ethnic backgrounds, ages, and, well, not genders, but you know,
I wonder what
genders.
happens when they look like their dog. Oh, so, all right,
know
then
what to say
use
about
us for, so
Yes.
how would you, using us, how would you look for compatibility?
Okay.
Or
So what you do
differences.
when you're, and I'll teach this in the class, is you're either looking at forehead, forehead, eyes, eyes. So you go down the face, you know, matching the facial features, or you do a composite of each face and then you put them together. So when I do live face reading, you look at the first 5 features you see about someone, and then you get your essence, and then you match it to the other partner's essence. And what happens, I've noticed, for example, when the faces are very unlike each other, sometimes there'll be karma or chemistry that will lock in the relationship, but usually around year 6, the relationship starts going like this, and if it lasts till year 11, it comes apart, which would be like Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, which is their faces were opposites. So year 11, month 11, completely went like that. So the goal also is you look, the more unusual the features are, the more accurate they are. So for your compatibility, what you have in common is, of course, the deeper soul age, which is oversees all of face reading. You know, face reading is a psychological system, spiritual system, but the deeper soul age transcends that. So we always look for that. But what I look for in compatibility, and I have people call me, you know, when you're in a relationship,
yeah,
call me, let me look at those people and match with you. So I set up like 8 marriages, all of which are still together.
is that
So
right?
8 out of 8. So, but anyway, the what you're looking for in your faces, what I would say is, what is he drawn to in you, and what are you drawn to in him? So I'm going to analyze it from that perspective because it's more fun.
Okay.
Okay. So
I'll answer first. Or
oh,
you
please, no,
ask,
I'll
are
just-
you asking
I'll
us? or-
talk and then I'll tell. You can tell me.
Oh, I thought you were asking what a.
No, I'll tell you.
Okay. She
I'll be
knows.
real brazen.
You're good. If you know what is it. Okay.
You can tell me later what you were attracted to.
I'll tell you.
Or you
later.
can answer. You know, I'm going to tell you what you're drawn to in Tom
Oh,
and
I
what he's
love
drawn
it.
to
I'm
in you.
amazed. Go
Okay?
for it.
And you tell me if it's right on. Okay, for Tom, what you offer, because you have the rounding in the forehead, which is people, 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 then you've got the full cheeks, which is big heart. The rounding in the chin and jaw is love of animals and children. So what many of the things he's drawn to, other than your deep soul age, your ability to reflect, your ability to be independent, even though lovingly connected. So you have some of that. So when Tom goes deep and wants to meditate and be separate and go deep inside himself, you're independent, and you know you're not like this next to him. True?
Exactly.
Okay, so that he needs that. So that's important. And then also you have the long earlobes, which Buddha, from art history, we know had very long earlobes. The longer the earlobes, the more spiritual development the person has. It's also the kidney point. You know, I go into the medical part in my book, the holistic part. But the earlobes have to do with seeking. So Tom knows about you that whether he is on a spiritual path or not, you will seek God on your own. And that's a tremendous source of love and inspiration for a husband, to know that separate than him, you have an independent spiritual life. True?
Yeah, and I have, fact behind that truth in that as a minister, Pasadena Temple and Self-Realization Fellowship for many years as a monk, that Tricia was coming to that temple.
Really?
And I would be assigned most often to leading a long meditation on Friday nights.
She would be there.
2 or 3 regularly, and I didn't know her at this point, but I saw this woman, which is Trish, sit there, and I mean one of the most still people in the whole congregation for that meditation. And whenever I would look up, boom, she was just like, month after month, year after year, and I said, wow, that soul is totally dedicated.
Exactly. And it's such a blessing for a husband or a wife to have another partner on the spiritual path who is going the same direction. I mean, and who has spiritual depth, which you both do. So that's what Tom, would be drawn to in you. Also, you have beautiful lines that are the communication lines that go, this is called a nasolabial line around the mouth. There are 40 types of those, and the one you have is good communicator. So you both have that, actually. He has the round one, too. And so, whereas Tom, let's say, at times he's going deep and might be austere, you don't hesitate to be affectionate and be warm and help him, set out his dinner or do whatever he is so he can do his work, and vice versa. You help each other in that way. Also, Trish and you both have the upper lip is narrow, the lower lip is full. So this, we know, is confidentiality. Anything that's told to you is in confidence. And we need partners. If we work in ministry or we work in teaching, we need partners who don't gossip, who keep their own counsel. That's hugely important. So then for you, is that true, what you're drawn to? Okay, then for Trish, what Tom offers is that sense of, I call it like a shooting star. It's like whoosh, out there, in terms of I'm seeking, I'm fearless, and that part about I'll go to any depth inside myself to get the truth. True? Is that not true? That's what I get.
Where do you see that on his
That's
face?
the fire face with the deep set eyes, which is I'm fearless.
Okay.
And this is fiery. And then it's picked up also the ear. If you look closely at Tom's ear, it comes straight up. There's no lobe, which is, right away if you like people or you don't. But it means also that you see truth and there's no fuss. There's no fluff around it. It's just like straight out. And so you admire that. We all admire that in somebody. True? Is that not true? And then the other part that Tom has that's kind of fun is he has this whimsical fun part that is kind of crazy. That's your ear structure. I know nothing about this, but is that accurate? So you're really intense or you're kind of fun and I don't know, is that true?
That's true.
Really
Everybody's
fun and kind of out there and crazy.
Yeah.
You like that?
Ron is working on some outtakes of me and teaching yoga.
Oh, really? That are
of
crazy?
some statements
Yeah.
that I make that are
They're
just
like
and he's gonna,
Thomisms.
and he's just gonna put them all together. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
He can be really
It's
fun.
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So the part that draws Trish is, the essence and the spiritual part, and then you have these lines that come up the side. So these are teacher lines that all three of us have, but these lines are a great drop-dead sense of humor. So you have that too, which breaks that up, and instead of someone being really so intense that people can't relate to you, you have this like riot sense of humor that just kind of goes, we go, because people, we need that. We all need that part. Is that not true?
But that is true. Yeah.
So it's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Wow.
Those are a few things. And
Well,
then-
will you marry me then?
Yeah.
Yes, I will.
So if you're dating someone, no,
Yeah.
just kidding.
Yeah.
Let
I
me
have
show
a
that photo.
So your workshop here on February
5th,
is going to be along
2 hours.
around this kind
Along
of
this-
thing.
It's on romance, so I'm going to go into exactly what this is like. And if people come, what I'll do, as many people as I can, is I'll look at each person's face and tell you, this is the kind of man you need to draw. This eye color, this forehead shape, what is the best for your
Wow.
face?
That's amazing.
And everybody's face is completely different.
Wow.
So we all need different types of partners to really bring out our essence and our gifts and our life goals. So it's very unique to each person who comes.
Well, speaking of life goals, let's go there because
Okay.
then maybe we'll end with this profession. Ron, you come on up here for a second. Take a look at his face.
Okay.
And you can read it a little bit and then tell us now a little bit about profession. how you can
Okay.
see that in the face.
Tell us
Okay.
about our son-in-law, would you?
Because he's an interesting forehead. I thought it'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's fun. Okay, so as I say things, since I have just met you this evening, if they're accurate, just tell me. Okay,
Will do.
kind of we'll go through. Okay, to start with, we're looking at the tall, wide forehead. So this is whatever job you do, it has to be benefit focused. It has to help people. And we're looking at dimples, which are really cool. And this means it has to be fun. So it's not, I'm not working just for a living, but I have to enjoy what I'm doing. So it has to have that component to it.
Right.
Now, the other part that's interesting is if you look very closely, your eyebrows are low set to your eyes. So this is friendly, engaging. So it's going to be with people. It's going to be of service to other people. And the eyebrow shape you have also is it's flat with a little rounding. And keep in mind, in my book, I go through hundreds of these facial features with photos and ethnic backgrounds and what the person's like on a date and what they're like on the job, and then what's it called, a drawing. So I have to just open the book. So the ones you have, yours are flat eyebrows with a little rounding. So a flat eyebrow to some degree is an introvert, but the rounding in the eyebrow makes you more approachable. So you'll be doing a job that requires technical, like doing the filming, something technical, but with a fun part that is people oriented. So the other part, now your eyes, are they brown? I can't see with evening.
Yeah,
or
I've heard hazel and I've heard brown. So.
I think they're brown, but it's night. So
Yeah.
usually someone with dark hair and brown eyes is focused on their family. So that, especially if they're Caucasian, family is hugely important. So you're probably a great dad.
Thank
Really
you.
high priority.
He's saying
Yes, I think so.
I can vouch for that.
And then the other part, turn towards me a little so I can see you a little bit better. So we've got also, we're looking at the profile when the chin comes forward a lot, and we're thinking of like Jack Kennedy, Jackie Onassis at profile, huge chin. So this is go-getter. So whatever you set your mind to, you're on it. So you're really moving fast with that. And what's fascinating about your eyes is your visual left. So as we look at someone, if Tom, raise your left hand. So this is opposite mine. So it's not on the same side, but the optic nerve crosses in the back, so it's opposite. So this eye is larger than your right eye. And this is your personal life, this is your work life. And so what that means, Ron, for you is that up to age about 35, you're very interested in your spiritual life, you're interested in your emotions, how you respond to people. In the area of photography, you could be doing like National Geographic profiles on people. You go out and you interview people and their inner work and what they're doing, and so that would be fascinating to you. And then after age 35, which is a smaller eye, that's when you really do well at your work and your business. All of a sudden it explodes in a good way. And that's also picked up because the face shows things in different areas. In face reading, we draw a horizontal line across the eyes, and your ears are low set to the eyes. And this means late bloomer. So it means you come into your own after 35 and things just explode for you with your own company.
He's
Very
only,
nice.
what, 27?
How old are you? Oh, so this year is your pivotal year, and that shows in your nose break. So 27 to 28 is a really turning point for you. And this is, we look at breaks in the nose in terms of both trauma and life lessons and gifts. And then some other parts also, have you turned this way a little more? So you also have, we talked about with your face, the ear structure. You can see how my ear turns back on itself. So you have the same, which is interest in alternative healing, yoga, meditation. And the last part of your face that will show well for career for you is when we see somebody, and we don't have this, but someone who has a really wide area between the nose to the ears. So this is a really large area. You can, if you turn around, they'll see on the camera. There you are. So when it's really wide in here, it indicates someone who people will look to for giving you more and more responsibility. You will look confident. You will come across as an authority. So it's a very nice feature for jobs, whatever your application. So those are a few things.
Will you hire me?
Well, we'll talk
I
about
would.
extending your contract later.
I'd hire you.
What's interesting is that I found, believe it or not, the first time I saw Barb's book is in we were staying at a friend's house on the beach during our honeymoon. And I was looking at this, and she has a whole thing on ears. Ears are fascinating. And I was able to speak up from her book. My nephew was only a few years old at the time, and I said to my sister, get him a guitar.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is because of
His ears
Barb's
come
book.
forward.
Yes, get him a guitar. He's going to be a musician. Well, that's how we met Ron, is because Jesse and Ron were roommates at Berklee School of Music at college. Because they both, and so show us with his ears where you see the music so people can see that in themselves.
Usually music shows in different parts for the other person when the ears come forward. And for people who are listening, put your hands behind your ears, and I'm going to talk at a monotone level. So I want you to put your ears forward now, and I'm going to keep talking at the same monotonous level. So I want you to let your hands go now and put your hands on your lap. Could you hear me better when your ears were forward? So when you're born with the ears forward, you have more acoustic ability, ironically enough. So sound and music is really important. And for your face, you have a little bit of that, but the music is picked up in other features, which is this particular line. So yours is vibration and sound, which is also computers and guitar. So it could be playing an instrument. So it could be any of those. Do you play instruments?
Well, it's very interesting because I started off playing guitar. I went to school for guitar, and then everybody would always ask me, like, can you get me the sound? I need a sound for the guitar. I need a sound. I need a sound. So eventually I said, I need to study the sound part of everything going on with music. So I got into audio engineering.
Exactly.
And that was where my passion really
That's your
lie.
passion.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
computers.
An
is part
example
of his.
was I was on The Young and the Restless on national TV, or with the cast on The Young and the Restless. So they showed me a photo of the little girl who is the producer's daughter, and she has like a very narrow nose bridge, which is the one I have. So this is classical string instruments. So I played violin for 14 years. So I looked at this little girl who's like 6, and I said to the producer, so she plays the violin? And he went, oh yes, not well, but she plays the violin. So yours isn't that, because yours would have been, I started a classical string instrument and then I'm done.
Right.
So, but hers was, I really do that, I'm doing that.
Sure.
So, but yeah, sound is more the variance for yours. And that also with the ear structure relates to acupuncture, which is vibration. Sound, vibration, yoga, Om, sound, vibration, Marcia's class, Tuesday night. Love Marcia's class. So sound, vibration, essence. So that's your way, Om. Doing the Om technique is your way to God.
Ah,
That's
interesting.
And you know
There
what's
you go,
fascinating
your way
about
on.
face reading that I never thought of till now is the spiritual path is very broad. There's the devotional life in the spiritual path. There's Kriya, which is a technique we do, Om technique. So whatever your face is, you can match it to which essence on the spiritual
very
path
cool.
will get you there the quickest.
Is that right?
I never
Wow.
thought about it till just now.
No, really?
It's so obvious.
That's awesome.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
it's obvious because your face will match a certain part of the spiritual life.
So he's
So-
the Om. What's her?
Yours is Divine Mother, which is the heart. Yeah,
So
yours is just
devotion
straight
or-
out devotion. Yeah,
And what
And-
would be mine?
I would say yours is Kriya, and the deeper techniques of interiorization of the mind, introspection, interiorization. Not that we're not doing the same thing,
Right.
but they're parts of the spiritual path that will appeal to different people more than other parts. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where you go, wow, I
it's
really
very
relate to Divine
interesting.
Mother, whereas my face is more analytical. I don't relate to, I try to relate to Divine Mother, but that's not really my area, whereas yours is, even though we're both women.
And
so it
ev-
doesn't mean just because you're a woman you love Divine Mother. Mine's not exactly that way.
So maybe we can, we all have a future, well, our face ages,
Correct.
right? What impact does that have on our personalities or growth? And can we change it by the way that we
Absolutely.
behave?
What I've noticed in people is, well, you asked 2 questions, so I'm going to answer one to start with, is as we age, of course, the face will shift a little, but what we're looking at is as you get older, how your face changes is how you live. And so when you're seeking God and you're radiant in your life, you become gorgeous as you get older. So, and that's the radiance from the eyes, the soft tissue, it looks beautiful because you're living from inside out. You're not living from outside in, which is in American Beauty, we look at outside in, but in yoga, we look at it this way. And so as you get older, you become prettier, actually. And that's more the essence, it's not just the face. But even the face reflects that softness, don't you think? When
Oh,
you've
yeah.
known
Yeah.
Old people who are
Yeah.
doing inner work, they look really radiant.
Yeah.
Especially their eyes, as you were saying.
Especially their eyes, as
Yeah.
they get older. And you had another question.
Well, if someone wanted to change their face, maybe not for this lifetime, but another
Next
lifetime,
time,
right?
it's all continuing.
It's how we behave. Then it's the effort that we make to
Um,
become a better person.
What I've noticed is as soon as you do any form of inner work, your face will start changing. So even when we look at criminology, anyone from my point of view who does meditation, yoga, 12-step work, counseling, healing work, introspection, Kriya, of course, any path of yoga, any path of prayer, will change themselves because they'll open their heart. And when the heart is open and the mind becomes clear and there's a feeling of wanting purity of love, then we're drawn more to God, and that will change the face.
That changes
And
the
shows-
face in
it
that
ch-
incarnation.
Yes.
You actually
changes
see a
the-
shift.
mhm.
Have
I
you
see
seen
the shift.
people's pictures from,
I have.
and they've changed?
I have,
because
definitely. One example that's in my book is my friend, whose name I'll change, Marion, is a psychologist in the Midwest, and she adopted 2 little girls who had been in foster care, horrific situation. And when I looked at their ears, the ears have to do with neurological changes, and they were like 2, and I looked at their ears and I went, oh, this is really bad. They looked like, you could see there's tremendous abuse. Then, because she was so loving and the family was a spiritual family, I know both of these girls now, and they're 18 and 16, and their ears completely rotated back into a normal position, which is medically impossible. So the face will just change and morph according to the inner light. And things that medicine thinks of it are impossible, they just happen. And so I've seen remarkable changes in faces when the heart's awakened. So.
That is
Well,
so beautiful.
we mentioned Yogananda, and like you said, it's taken us a long time to form these faces, right?
Oh yeah.
And the personality traits and all that, and yet, as we draw closer to God, all that can change. So,
Right.
Yogananda met this man named Luther Burbank, who was a horticulturist, right?
Exactly.
And he had such love for plants and nature that he worked on just loving this cactus that had spines.
Right.
And he would tell it, you don't have to defend yourself anymore because I love you.
Isn't that beautiful?
Right? And so
Exactly.
you can imagine a cactus plant for generations, how long it had developed the spines just to survive. Well, Yogananda loved it so much.
Luther Burbank.
Luther Burbank loved this cactus so much that it shed its spine.
But the patience, how long did Luther Burbank work at that? It was a very long time. It was years that he had to convince the cactus to shed its spine, so the next generation was born without spine.
But it did.
Yeah.
It did.
But it was the patience and the love.
And Yogananda then got some of the cuttings of the spineless cactus, and they're in his different gardens.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right. So
definitely.
I don't care how long we've been in this habit or
We
this.
let in the light.
Right.
Yeah, instead of the darkness, we let in the light, and God changes us.
Well-
it's not just us changing us, but there's, go ahead.
Yeah, it's the alchemy.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
When I was younger, I had a friend that had quite a massive, what they called a birthmark on his face. And I was curious if that is something that you use as a feature to use your face reading.
That's
on
a
or
really
not?
great
That's
question.
a great question. I'll share, sometimes because I've looked at 6,000 people and really studied this for 25 years, sometimes I see things I don't know, and that's not one I know.
Okay.
When I say, the future means this, it means I've looked at 50 people who have that, who say to me, yes, that's accurate for me, the psychological meaning. I've only seen that a few times, so I don't really know.
Even scarring wouldn't mean
Scarring, well, I'll give you an example. I'm probably the only author who develops 3 categories of the face. So the first one is what you're born with. For example, Trisha's ear comes down, you have the long earlobe. Tom has that earlobe that comes straight up. That's what you're born with. That's category 1. Category 2 is how you like to look. which when I teach at Macy's, I teach for Oasis. I call that the whole bottom floor of Clinique, you know, makeup and stuff. So category 3 is orthodontia, melanoma, skin cancer, things that will, you know, like the birthmark, that will affect what we look like. And you always read the whole person. So the more unusual the facial feature, the more accurate. So if I were reading this person's face, what I would do, because I don't know that meaning, but I would look for the rest of his face, because the body is the imprint of our psychological, spiritual, even financial understanding. So I look where else in the face his essence would show up, and then I know it would be other places other than just the mark.
Great.
But I don't know the answer for that. So I never hesitate to say I don't know if I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, it's been wonderful having you. Thank you so much. And I have to, you know what fascinated me, and just closing with this, is that Barbara's when asked, one of the newscast stations had you come on right after President Clinton
yes,
was elected.
yes, yes. Yeah.
She read his face and was very accurate. And
Should
I said,
I
"No,
tell them what that was about?"
Why don't you? Because that.
So
well,
I always
it's a great-
go, you know, I've been on 50 TV shows, a lot of morning news. And so for every presidency, they have me on to analyze the two people. So on YouTube, you know, I have those 20 shows. So I think Clinton's one of those.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Obama's on there on YouTube.
And so speak about the just because you speak about Clinton and then a little bit about.
Okay, so what happened with Clinton is they had me on the show, and I was showing the right and the left side of the face, which I don't know if we have time to do right now, but it's in my book. Right side is your work life, left side is your personal life. So when I divided Clinton's face, you want someone either whose right side and left side are the same, which is what you see is what you get in somebody, or whose left side looks really good, which means that they're doing inner transformational work. They might have had a hard life, but inside they're working on themselves. So in Clinton's face, it was the opposite, which is his left side of his face was very manipulative, cold, and ruthless. And so here I'm on national TV or local TV, whatever, televising all over the world. So, and I'm looking at Clinton, and of course at the time, everyone wanted him to be a Kennedy, and they were like, oh, we want him to be a... So I got on there and I said, no, actually he's going to be a soft president, because he had Carter's jaw structure, which is soft president, kind, but soft president, not like Jack Kennedy. But then I saw the left side of his face, and I said, actually, what will happen with Clinton is during some part of his presidency, he's going to do something to manipulate the American public, and the whole country will turn on him, and he's not going to like it. Well, you can imagine on morning TV, they're like, get her off, you know, like, so, and then 8 years or whatever it is later, enter Monica Lewinsky, where he tried to manipulate the American public. So that was his left side of his face, which is, this is who I really am. So in the February 5th class, dating, you want to look at the left side of somebody's face. That's really who they are.
Wow.
So we're going to have her back in October when we have the two candidates, right?
Oh, God.
Because I
know.
do want to say, well, the thing is, though, that she says that Obama has a very kind, he's a good man. You can read it from his face.
And on YouTube, you know, I have like a Tyra Banks show on Obama. There are a whole bunch of shows on Palin, Obama. But what I see in President Obama's face, and I'm not a political person, I should tell you that straight out, but he has a noble face and integrity. And personally, that's who I vote for. Anyone like Gandhi, someone who strives to live who they are. I don't care about their politics, but if in their essence they're striving to be who they really are, personally I admire that.
Don't you think we need to get Barbara on, like, out there to read the faces of the people who want to be our leaders? But
well, that's why I go on morning TV every time we have a presidency. If I have strong feelings, I go on and say, well, this is why.
That's awesome.
You know,
That's
this is why I go this way. And
so there's no hiding ourselves anymore. You get
So if you have any people that are dating, have them come on February 5th, right?
and Barb will be honest.
Very honest. Well, my goal is to help people and give healing and insight. And we want people, you know, as soulmates who are in alignment with us and help us spiritually.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other part, you know, if people aren't able to come, just check out my website, facereading1.com, and you're welcome to write me and I'll respond.
Yeah, and
So-
she does private sessions and that
In
sort of thing.
Encinitas and all over the United States, actually.
Yeah. Well,
by
thank
phone.
you so much for coming.
You
It
are
was just-
a true unique, Barbara.
Yes.
I'm sure.
True unique. Thank you.
I'm sure that's true.
This flash, yeah. So much fun. Thank you.